Hello, and welcome to this big godly play space. This is another one of our stories in the VBC theme, God Calls. Who are we to say no? My name is Ruth Lomax, and it is my privilege to be able to not only work here, but to get to tell stories from time to time. We are grateful to be on the traditional lands of the Nihiyawin, the people of the Sundance culture. And as I'm recording this story, they are getting ready and have been setting up for probably the better part of a week to host the powwow out at the Samson Reserve. I hope you get a chance to go, but this story will play after that, so I'm not a very good advertisement. I wonder what you need to be ready to hear a story today. We've been very busy cleaning up after Godly Play and Vacation Bible Camp, and it's been a delight to have children back in the space. Know that you can pause this video whenever you want if you need to take a break or you need to get something for your feast or for your art materials. I've already got my things kind of lined up here, and we'll get right into the story fairly soon. But first, once, there was someone who said such amazing things and did such wonderful things that people began to follow him. And the more they followed him, the more they wondered who he was. One time they just had to ask, "Who are you?" And one time, when they asked him that question, he said, "I'm a light." See how the light grows when it's shared? You might choose to light a candle of your own, or perhaps you have a battery candle that you use wherever you live. Some places don't allow you to use a real candle. However it works for you, I invite you to take a deep breath and to remember the light that is within you and around you. And take some time to enjoy that light. I'm going to put this light back on the shelf so we can get ready for our story. This is the story of Saint Teresa of Avila. You'll find it on the Saint shelf if you happen to be in the Godly Playroom. You might only find this part of the story because we haven't built the rest of it for the Godly Playroom. But this booklet tells you everything you need to know for now. It shows you where Teresa was born, the flag of that country, and it tells you a bit about the story itself. The church remembers Teresa in that great green and growing season after Pentecost. But why do we remember Teresa? Let's find out. Teresa was born in Avila, which is a city in the middle part of Spain. She was one of 10 children. Her home was very warm and lively. Then when Teresa was 12 years old, her mother died. Everything changed. When she was about 14, her father sent her away to school. And it was while she was there that she discovered she wanted to spend her whole life coming closer to God. But how would she do that? Teresa decided to become a Carmelite nun at the age of 22. And she entered into that new life with all of her heart and soul. But the very next year, she got sick. She was very sick. She would eventually get better, but even after 3 years, she still wasn't able to get out of bed. It would take a while yet before she could walk again or get up and move around. She eventually did get well, but that poor health troubled her all her life. One day, when Teresa was about 40, something remarkable happened. She was praying in her regular way, and something changed. Somehow she knew that God was there, but even more there. She couldn't see or hear God, but she knew God's presence. And everything changed. That new awareness of the holy presence filled her with a strength and a sense of joyful happiness. Other people began to notice the change in Teresa as well. She seemed happier and more sure of herself. Her poor health didn't seem to bother her as much. She liked to make playful jokes and loved visiting with others. In Teresa's day, most people traveled by donkey. If you had a little more money, you could travel by mule. And if you were very rich, you rode on horseback or could take a carriage or a coach. Teresa rode on a donkey. And one day, when she was riding, the saddle she was in started to slip a little. But Teresa was so busy praying she didn't notice. And then as they crossed a river, the saddle slipped all the way underneath the donkey and Teresa fell in the water. She said, "God, why do you treat your friends like this? Not much wonder you don't have many friends." And then she laughed. The people she was traveling with wondered with whom she was speaking. Teresa also wrote many large books to try to explain how she had come close to God. One of them was called The Interior Castle, and she described coming close to God like entering into a crystal castle with many rooms, and each room had an inner door opening into the next room. And the further in one got, eventually one got to the heart of the castle where all the crystal was clear and it was full of light, and all you could see was God. If you go to the city of Seville, you can still see a copy of that book. It's set like a ruby in a glass case. Teresa wrote many other books, and that's part of why, one of the many reasons anyways, that she was considered a doctor of the church, like Catherine of Siena or Teresa of Lisieux. Teresa's final journey wasn't especially important, but it took all that she had. When she got to the city of Alba, her strength was poured out. And the Carmelite sisters there gave her a room with a bed so she could rest. And she stayed there until she died, praying and giving thanks to God that she was a child of God. I wonder what part of this story you like best. I wonder what part of this story is most important. I wonder if there's any part of this story we could leave out and still have all the story that we need. I wonder where you are in this story. Or what part of this story might be especially for you today. I'm going to put the story away. You can pause the video if you want to get some materials ready for your work or response time, or you might choose to get your feast ready as well. And I'll see you back here in a moment or two. The crystal. And most people traveled by donkey. And the bed that reminds us of just how ill Teresa had been. Can't quite imagine having to stay in bed for 3 years, let alone 1 year. And the story of Teresa of Avila. The words are all here, some of the pictures to remind you about the materials, the map to show you where Spain is. And we remember Teresa in that green and growing season after Pentecost. Welcome back. I wonder what you found for your art response. It doesn't have to be super fancy, but something that might call to you or invite you to be a little bit creative as you think about this story. You could journal. You could take some crayons or pencil crayons or pen and paper and do some drawing, some cutting and pasting. Some people like to paint. I think that was the most popular activity at Vacation Bible Camp, painting. Didn't matter whether they were painting on paper or on rocks or on magnets or letters or painting with glitter or paint or glue, almost anything to paint. You might like working with texture as well, and that's what I decided. I found some beads and some wire and a bell. You could use a pipe cleaner, you could use buttons or almost any kind of bead. You could use fish line. Doesn't matter really what you use, anything, it just changes how material works, right? Because the wire is a little bit stiffer. And I have some pliers that I use for cutting the wire rather than scissors. You just need a pair of pliers that has that little sharp edge on it. These are called kind of a needle nose plier because they're a little pointed, which lets me do some finer work. Now I'm going to put the wire on the bell. And the bell is going to be kind of my anchor bead in this case so that all the other beads don't fall off. Some people like to string the bead just loose. Some people like to tie each bead on individually. Whatever works for you. In the Catholic Church, in the Roman Catholic Church, because Catholic means universal. So I'm part of the United Catholic Church. But in the Roman Catholic Church, they have something called a rosary. And some Protestant churches use a set of prayer beads as well. And there are other faiths that also have prayer beads. And each set has a different number of beads depending on the significance. You might choose to put one bead for each day of the week, or for each week of the year, or for each member of your family. Teresa had 10 kids in her family. That's a big family. You might choose to make a pattern with your beads. I'm just going to put them on loose because I have the bell that'll stop them from sliding off the end. And I think I kind of like making rainbows for some reason. Sometimes people pray as they're stringing their beads. I would pray something for the people in hospital. Thinking about all the families where you're not quite sure whether someone's going to come home, whether they'll need to stay in care. Maybe thinking about Teresa and how sick she was, and how many people I know who are not well. And as much as their friends and family don't begrudge looking after them in any way, it still takes energy and time. And it's hard to do some days. If you've ever been sick, what helped you get better? Or maybe you've had to look after somebody when they were sick. There are not many orange beads in this bag. It's funny how that goes sometimes. We decided that purple was the popular color at Vacation Bible Camp for almost anything. Something kind of relaxing about stringing beads. so that it doesn't poke. When you're done your prayer chain, you can take some time, maybe outside in the morning or before you go to bed at night. And as you touch each bead, take a deep breath and to say a prayer. Maybe in the morning, you pray for the things that are going to be happening during that day. Maybe in the evening, you pray for the things that went well, to say thank you to God. And pray for a good night's rest for yourself and for your family and friends and communities. Pray for peace around the world. However we choose to pray, we trust that God is there. And there will be times when, like Teresa, we feel like God is just more there, even though we can't see or hear God. I wonder where you like to come close to God. So let's say thank you. Sometimes we call that grace, sometimes we just call it gratitude. We say thank you to God for this beautiful day, for time to be together, for beauty, creativity, for the gift of conversation. Every year that we've offered Vacation Bible Camp, when the leaders get together afterwards and we kind of have some conversations about what we liked and what we didn't, what we want to make better. And always at the top of the list, or near the top, is that one-on-one conversations with the children and the youth as we're working and creating things together. It's something we've all been missing. And hopefully, as we are getting back to some of our regular routines or activities, or that opportunity to see some of the people we haven't seen for a few years, we enjoy those conversations, that time to come together. So for all of those gifts, God, and for the food that nourishes our body, and the sun and the rain and the warmth that nourish the earth, we give thanks. Amen. Well, I have some Jell-O. We made this specifically for Teresa of Lisieux, or of Avila. It was blue Jell-O to remind us of the river. We used a cookie across the top, like a bridge. And I think there's even something down at the bottom. Probably not a person. Either way, it's pretty cool and refreshing. And the weather's been warm again this week. So it's especially nice to be cool and refreshed. I'm almost there. I'm trying not to talk with my mouth full. It's a bad habit I have. That's the other thing I was trying not to do. We were pretty good all week. There weren't too many spills. We even had a campfire. We made s'mores. We do eat well at Vacation Bible Camp. Oh, I'm almost to the bottom. I need to put my glasses on though, just to be able to see. Ah, I think it's a gummy bear. Although it's not very gummy anymore, after having sat at the bottom of the Jell-O for a while. I wonder what you found for feast today. Or what helps you be cool and refreshed. This is very good. And I even have some water. And then, I don't know about you, but it's been a long day already. And I'm ready to go home and get cool and refreshed. So watch what happens when I change the light. The light is just in this one place and one time. But when we change it, it can spread out and fill this place. And it's a pretty big place to fill. And it'll get so thin, you won't be able to see it anymore. But just because you can't see it, doesn't mean it isn't there. Did you see it happen? So God bless and be well. Look after one another until we meet again.